I spent a lot of time playing both Ghost Recon Wildlands and Ghost Recon Breakpoint as of recently, and I like to share my thoughts based on my own experience. These two games are both open world tactical shooters, but they feel very different when you get down to the details. So Wildlands is set in a fictional version of Bolivia. The world is huge, full of dense jungles, vast deserts, rugged mountains, and even salt flats. There's some small villages, farms, and outposts that are scattered everywhere. This makes the game feel fully and truly lived in, and quite believable too, as if you're exploring a real country with its own culture and life. Now, Breakpoint, however, takes place on the fictional island of Aurora, and Aurora has actually quite many different terrains like tropical forests, tundras, and snowy peaks. But the island, just something about it feels empty. There aren't as many kind of inhabitants and just signs of a local life, which can make it feel less engaging. Now, on the brighter side, the graphics in Breakpoint are far more realistic. Every detail, from explosions to lighting, looks very polished. Even the world itself might feel somewhat smaller in scale, and genuinely, I like that. Both games offer open world tactical shooter action, but they do it in sort of a different ways. Wildlands is more arcade-like. It focuses on exploring a big varied world and taking on missions with a more traditional shooter experience. There's no gear progression system or loot scores. You use the weapons and tools that you start with, and the game is all about choosing different ways to complete your mission, like so-called black box. Now, the mission design in Wildlands gives you plenty of options to approach objectives in different varieties of ways, and I like that. But in Breakpoint originally came with some of the extra RPG-like elements such as gear scores and tiered loot, but many people found this feature completely unnecessary. That's why the Immersive Mode was introduced. In the Immersive Mode, all the extra progression is removed. You work with a fixed set of weapons and equipment that perform according to their own design. There's no bonus from leveling up the gear, so you have to rely on your own skills and tactics. Now, in this mode, you'll get partial health regeneration, limited resources, like for example a set of numbers of bandages and the loss of even extra ammo on the reload, and every minimal HUD display. So this is a very nice touch. This makes every fight feel more realistic and demanding. The game feels more like a true military simulation, where stealth, proper cover, and careful planning becomes crucial. The cover system, smoother body movement, makes the stealth gameplay even more natural than even Wildlands. And overall, Immersive Mode in Breakpoint forces you to think and act tactically, which is what I really enjoyed, this sort of a military shooter aspect of Breakpoint, even far more than Wildlands. Now, Breakpoint's Immersive Mode kind of emphasizes on the realism. You need to manage your resources very carefully. For an instance, you only have a limited number of bandages, and if you reload, any extra bullets in your magazine are lost. Like I mentioned, you can make these adjustments in the settings if you want it to be like this, more difficult, tougher for you, more realistic. Now this means every shot matters, and wasting ammunition can leave you vulnerable. The injury system in Breakpoint is also quite detailed. Minor injuries might slow you down or affect your aim, and severe wounds can make it much harder to fight effectively. These realistic touches makes each encounter feel intense and force you to plan your moves carefully. But in Wildlands, on the other hand, offers a more of a sort of like a relaxed shooter experience. It focuses on the tactical action without extra weight of resources management or realistic injury effects. This makes Wildlands easier to jump into for those who want a real military challenge. Breakpoint in Immersive Mode is much more demanding. It's important for me to clarify one last time. Yes, I understand that in these settings you can make things all up to you, and I really appreciate Breakpoint, but there's also to the point that you make it too easy for you, to the point that you just can't seem to die. But yet also it really is up to you to make these sorts of decisions. Now, I opted in going for more realistic military experience, and I had far better time in Breakpoint Immersive Mode comparing this overall in Wildlands. Another noticeable difference is the world scale, and well, I just gonna add this in here as well, loading times. So Wildlands offers a vast world to explore, but its loading screens and fast travels are often very long, even on my PlayStation 5 Pro. Waiting for the game to load sometimes disrupts the flow and takes you on just out of the moment. Breakpoint, however, has much faster loading times. Although the world in Breakpoint might feel smaller, this faster loading times and quicker fast travel keeps the action moving. This means you spend less time waiting and more time playing, which helps maintain the immersion. So, the story in these two games are also set up apart, right? Wildlands centers on taking down Santa Blanca's drug cartel. The narrative feels deep and mature, I believe so anyway, at least to some extent. The world's detail, environments, and cultural touches help support the story, making the conflict feel real and grounded. But Breakpoint's story, however, revolves around a rogue specialist operations unit called the Wolves, led by the character with a cinematic presence voiced by John Berthel. While there are plenty of action moments, the story sometimes feels more kind of just generic and condensed. Now, Breakpoint has more cutscenes, which adds a cinematic feel to the game, but at times these cutscenes seem to appear at random moments during the conversation with the NPCs. For me, Wildlands' narratives and the way it would tell its story feels better and more believable, while Breakpoint's narrative focuses more on the fast-paced military action, but yet also a little more grounded, I want to say. It's like kind of feels more personal. But I don't know, I feel honestly both of these games don't really tell you a good story nevertheless, and yeah, both of them don't deserve too much praise, honestly. Now, regarding the next part, customization is a key difference between the two titles. Wildlands offers some options to customize your character and loadout, but it's fairly limited, mostly about unlocking useful tools like drones and binoculars that helps you in missions. Breakpoint, however, offers extensive customization. There's details, class systems where you can choose roles such as assault, marksman, and more, with its own perks and abilities. Now, when it comes to controls, Breakpoint is far better. The vehicle handling, aiming itself, the overall combat controls are smoother and more responsive. In Breakpoint, I could actually fucking aim how I wanted, and the controls felt natural during these intense battles. This makes a huge difference in combat and adds the overall satisfaction towards this game. Now, the user interface also plays a big role. Wildlands has a simple, clear UI with straightforward maps, markers, and notification. This makes it easy for new players to learn the game without too much confusion. Oh my goodness, but Breakpoint's UI, even in immersive mode, even though it's minimal, it's good, which helps you keep your focus on the action. However, I have to admit that at first the UI in Breakpoint was absolutely confusing and cluttered way too many of my options. It took me a few days to ignore the extra menus to learn what was really important, and once I got used to it though, the minimalistic approach helped maintain a strong sense of immersion. But it had to be said that the UI, the menu system, the design of it all is god-awful. One feature of Breakpoint that I really did not like was the main save zone area. In my view, having a central save zone is completely useless and should have never been a part of this game. Now, it breaks the tension by offering a place where nothing dangerous happens, which doesn't fit the overall realistic and tactical approach. Now, I get it, like with the decision that the developers were going for, making this game more like a looter shooter, so they needed some vendors to come to approach, they needed to monetize their microtransactions, as quite understandable why they decided to go with this approach, but nevertheless, it's still bad. Now, on the other hand, I did enjoy some of the new survival mechanics in Breakpoint. The game lets you eat and drink, as an example, to reduce your fatigue or lower the chances of getting injured, which actually adds quite an extra layer of realism. Plus, you can fast forward time, jumping to morning, evening, or night as an example, which is a neat way to plan your missions according to the situation. Yeah, these features not only make the game more realistic, but also allow you to adjust the pacing of your play, which I found very useful. Now, honestly, both the games emphasizes on the stealth and tactical combat, but they deliver them in a little bit of a different ways. In Wildlands, stealth is straightforward. Use cover, move quietly, and avoid enemy sight. It's effective and fun, but it sometimes feels, well, somewhat basic. Now, Breakpoint in immersive mode takes stealth to perhaps another level. With a refined cover system and smoother body movement, stealth feels more natural and satisfying. You can even drag down fallen enemies to hide them, which is a cool extra feature that adds tactical depth. Combined with the improved controls and realistic injury system, every battle in Breakpoint feels more intense. Both games allow you to play with friends or with AI teammates. Oh, before I proceed, I needed to mention regarding the AI teammates that in Wildlands they are far more refined, and I do know that initially Breakpoint never came with the AI teammates, at first when it released, but it was added in later on. But I have to say that the AI teammates within Breakpoint is kind of unrealistic, and to the point that's it's not well refined. You can clearly see the difference with Wildlands and Breakpoint. But Breakpoint makes it easier to jump into the cooperative session. Now inviting random players is quite smooth, making the game feel more social. Wildlands offers co-op too, but it doesn't quite match the ease and flexibility of Breakpoint's system, I believe. Now Breakpoint also includes PvP mode called Ghost Wars, which adds another layer of challenge. Although, honestly, I only played a few matches in Ghost Wars just for the trophies. It was a fun addition that brought variety to the overall experience. Now, I may be wrong, but I believe there's also Ghost War in Wildlands. Again, guys, I could be wrong, but I have never played it since it was not even necessary and I didn't bother trying it. It was not necessary for the trophy. Now, I played Wildlands for a good amount of time and even earned a platinum trophy after around 60 hours of gameplay. More recently, I've played Breakpoint in Immersive Mode for about 33 hours and also earned a platinum trophy. Now, these personal achievements reflect my deep engagement with both games and show how each game tests your tactical skills in their own ways. Now, in the end, both Wildlands and Breakpoint have their own strengths. Wildlands offers a vast, detailed, and believable lived-in world. Its setting is a fictional Bolivia, makes the environment feel alive, and a story about taking down Santa Blanca cartel is more engaging. Now the game gives you plenty of freedom to choose how you approach each mission, making it a very atmospheric experience. However, its gameplay is more arcade-like, and long loading times or slow, fast travel, including awful controls, can really break your immersion. Breakpoint, especially in immersive mode, feels very different. Removing any RPG-like gear progression makes the game focus purely on realistic tactical gameplay. The realistic graphics, faster loading times, smoother controls for the vehicles and aiming all contribute to the more engaging experience. Immersive mode forces you to rely on your own skills, managing resources, dealing with realistic injuries, and using more of advanced stealth tactics. Although the world of Breakpoint might seem smaller, I actually think it's a good thing, but it still feels kind of less lived in. There's just no natural people that would be part of this world, like it was more in Wildlands. Its refined mechanics and detailed combat makes every mission count in Breakpoint. The extra survival features such as eating and drinking to reduce fatigue and fast forwarding time adds even more depth to the tactical challenge. One major drawback in Breakpoint is the main safe zone, which feels completely out of place in the game and otherwise pushes for realism. It could have been removed to keep the retention high. On the plus side, the extension customization of the options like a detailed class system and realistic military uniforms can give you a lot of freedom to shape your own gameplay and make your own character look the way you want. Additionally, the ease to join in cooperative session in Breakpoint makes it a more social experience than Wildlands in my opinion. Overall, my experience tells me that if you love exploring richly detailed world with a deep narrative, Wildlands may be a good choice for you. But if you want a game that really tests your tactical skills and with realistic combat, refined controls, and extra survivable mechanics, again, it's up to you to make that kind of decision within the options and the settings, especially when you're playing in immersive mode, then Breakpoint is a definite better pick. For me, playing Breakpoint in immersive mode was far more engaging and rewarding experience. I truly enjoyed focusing on skills and realism, and the quick loading times, smoother controls, and enhanced customization all made a difference. Now, after playing Wildlands extensively and earning a platinum trophy after about 68 hours, and then spending roughly straight after 33 hours in Breakpoint's immersive mode, and yet again also getting that platinum trophy, I can say that the difference in gameplay really stands out. Wildlands feels like a vibrant open world full of life and narrative depth, while Breakpoint in immersive mode feel like a condensed realistic military simulation that demands your full tactical attention. Ultimately, the choice depends on your personal taste. If you prefer a rich, expansive world with a believable setting and somewhat compelling story, Wildlands is a strong option. But if you're looking for a more intense, realistic, and skill-based tactical shooter with faster loading times, better controls, then playing Breakpoint in immersive mode is the way to go. At that, thank you so much for watching, like and subscribe. See you guys all, and have a wonderful day.